Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a team that I put together for fun on stream, but ended up carrying me to a season-high elo of 2567. Now, this team was built around Shadow Dust Noir in the Ultra League. Now, I happen to have a very high-rank Ultra League Shadow Dust Noir, so I figured I may as well try it out. It now has Hex, which is really good pacing, Dynamic Punch, its first coverage move, and my goodness, this thing is a terrifying safe swap. And I paired it up with the ever-powerful Credilli plus Weezing core. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're off to a tough start in game number 1, as we're leading Credilli into Malamar. This is a bit of a core breaker for the team. Malamar, of course, does great against Credilli, and it's going to do great against the Dust Noir. My opponent just opting straight for the superpower right off the bat, and they're staying in because they know they can survive. I'm going to throw one, wait 2 turns, catch and sneak a Hex. So not only do we catch the superpower where it's double resisted, but now I have an energy head start. In comes Lapras, and this is not a good answer to Shadow Dust Noir. Look at the pacing, Dynamic Punch, huge damage onto the Lapras. Lapras farming up and going to return fire with a Sparkling Aria. I'm more than happy to commit the shield, because at this point, it seems like they don't have a good response to this Pokemon, so I may as well preserve it. Dynamic Punch is going to grab the shield, and now I'm going to pivot into the Galarian Weezing so I can save the Dust Noir for later. Sparkling Aria is going to connect, farming up with the Weezing, and I'm throwing my energy right before they get their next move. Sludge will KO the Lapras. Back in comes the Malamar. Malamar, unfortunately a slight miscount on my part. Malamar makes the foul play. It will not knock out, but I do lose a lot more HP. Now I get to fire off the Sludge. They're already low health, but they end up shielding. In comes Dust Noir. Dust Noir farming up, going for a Shadow Punch. Opponent catches onto Cobalion, but that is not going to save them, as Dust Noir gets the farm up so much energy. Launch a Shadow Dynamic Punch. You better believe this is knocking out Cobalion. Back in comes Malamar, and Shadow Dust Noir just completely took over a game. Knocking out the Malamar, knocking out the Cobalion as well, and that's a good game. We move to the next match, Credilli against Golisopod, so this is a good lead for Credilli. Of course, Golisopod can return fire with super effective X-Scissors, but even though they have a pacing advantage, the war of attrition is slowly won by Credilli due to the fact that Credilli is able to apply these Rock Tomb debuffs. Firing off this Rock Tomb is going to be shielded up by Golisopod. There's a switch out to Giratina, and I get to respond with Galarian Weezing. I did make sure to bank some energy on the Credilli before I switched out, because I can afford to give this Giratina an energy head start, because Weezing is going to do great here. It is the Shadow Clawtina, so it will put up a bit of a fight, but since I'm running Play Rough, I do have some very nice damage. I think Play Rough and Overheat are both very playable on Galarian Weezing in the Ultra League. I opted for Play Rough, and then I think I'm down to like 5 charge TMs at the time of recording this. I had 100 when the season started. I don't know where they all went. Here, I'm going to be firing off the Sludge on 1 HP. They actually switched into Golisopod, going for a Snipe, so I'm not able to get any more energy, but Golisopod is now going to fire off the X-Scissor. X-Scissor is going to connect, and here, ideally, I would love to get an energy lead on the Dust Noir, so I'm going to go for an undercharge on the Rock Tomb. This is going to allow me to switch into the Dust Noir, but they survive on 1 HP and make a last-second Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet will connect. In the back, they have Pangoro, and this is actually looking kind of good for the Shadow Dust Noir. What I have to do is make sure that they don't catch. At the 1, I see the second Karate Chop start. Here, this is an unnecessary bait. I could have made it to double Dynamic Punch. Now I watch for the catch. There's the wait and the catch attempt. Opponent timed it perfectly, but I was really trying to not let that Dynamic Punch be caught. So now Dynamic Punch KOs Pangoro. That damage is crazy. And man, Dust Noir, even through 2 battles, is rapidly becoming one of my favorite Pokemon in the Ultra League. Credilli against Malamar. This is actually an XXL Malamar. So this Malamar is magnificent. They're going straight for a superpower and a safe switch into Drapion. Drapion, not a particularly fun Pokemon for this team to deal with. I'm going to farm up, try for a catch, but unfortunately no crunch catch onto the Weezing. Weezing still more than happy to absorb multiple Aqua Tails. Oh, they're on Sludge Bomb. Okay. Sludge Bomb not really expected, but Sludge Bomb is still only neutral. So as a Weezing, I can still very comfortably tank multiple Sludge Bombs. Look to overfarm as much as possible, and Sludge, even though it's resisted, It's a 70 base power move. That's some pretty solid damage, so I will be able to pick up the knockout. I can make a play rough, but they're going to send in a Tentacruel instead. So this is not going to do much, and now we're off to the races with Shadow Dusknoir. Opponent is going to pivot into the Malamar. Malamar, I'm going to go for the harder hitting Dynamic Punch. They know no one move knocks out here, but they get the shield call right, and that is definitely not ideal for me. I'm going to be shielding back as they go, of course, for the foul play, and now I will opt to go for the Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch is going to be no shielded, my opponent getting all the shield calls right, and they are going to be firing off another foul play. I am going to commit the shield as Dusknoir, going for the Shadow Punch, and now my opponent, they still have one Protect Shield left to use, so they're going to use it here. There's the switch to Credilli. Credilli makes the Rock Tomb, but there's the switch out by the opponent, and they're able to make a catch onto Tentacruel. Tentacruel now debuffed. Not going to make a farm down here. I'm just going to fire off the Grass Knot. I want damage. I need to guarantee some damage onto this Pokemon. That's going to get them low. They're going to get a farm down, and unfortunately, my clock is not up. They are debuffed, however. If they have Blizzard, they win the game, because I cannot catch. I send in the Dusknoir, they wait a turn to see what comes in, throw the Poison Jab, and that means I sneak through a Hex. The debuff Scald doesn't KO, and we win the CMP tie over Malamar. Let's go. Shadow Dusknoir against all odds KOs the Malamar, and that's a good game. Credilli versus Blastoise, a dream lead in the next match. This is a dominant matchup. Opponent save switches into their own Credilli. And this, I'm very okay staying in, because since switching out takes a turn, I am always going to apply that first Rock Tomb debuff. My opponent here is playing it very intelligently though. They should always look to overfarm and make sure they have a lot of residual energy before they fire off their move, because if they throw instantly, that gives me the opening that I need to send out the Dusknoir. So I'm going to farm up quite a bit, and now my opponent is going to be firing off another move. I'm going to have to switch out of here at some point, because I do want to try and preserve the Credilli. I'm going to fire off this Grass Knot. I was hoping it was going to knock out, but at -2, it will do no such thing. Back in comes the Blastoise, but Blastoise did get one turn switch out there because their fast move had not yet registered, so now I get to apply a Rock Tomb. They're now debuffed, and now I can switch, save that Credilli very close to a move, and get a catch onto Weezing. So right off the bat, we have gone through so much of this battle already, and Credilli just never left the field. Credilli putting in an incredible amount of work. Opponent now going to go for a Skull Bash. Here, I'm intentionally going for the weaker move of Sludge, because I'm one off the second Sludge, and that's going to force my opponent to throw instantly. So now they're not going to have a lot of residual energy. Hydro Cannon is going to pick up the KO, and now it's time. Dusknoir hits the field. They switch into Credilli. Credilli is just going to get farmed down, and in the back, they're going to have Weezing. Shadow Punch is going to connect, dealing some pretty okay damage, but realistically, with Dusknoir, you're never going to get a lot of fast move pressure, so the goal is just getting to as many of these Shadow Punches as possible, because this pacing 3-3-3-2 to Shadow Punch is absolutely ridiculous. Dusknoir has no business being as spammy as it is. Another Shadow Punch, another Shield, they're firing off more energy. I am very close to a move on Credilli, so they're going to go for the Brutal Swing. I wait the turn, switch, and get the catch and the sneak. The catch means that the move they throw doesn't KO, and I now have the Rock Tomb, so I can fire off the Rock Tomb. That's going to get them deep into the red. There's the switch out to Blastoise. Blastoise forced to fire off energy, but as long as I save the shield for Shadow Dusknoir, I have no lose cons in this match. I just click Shadow Punch. This will be able to knock out the Blastoise, and the energy that they have on this Weezing is completely irrelevant, and we take the win as the match timer begins to count down to 0. Credilli versus Shadow Galarian Weezing. This is a pretty fine matchup for the Credilli, so I'm okay playing this out. Credilli farming up quite a bit. Opponent throws on alignment, which was a massive surprise to me, as I do take an entire free Bullet Seed, which is great. I guess they were expecting me to throw instantly, but even though it's a debuffer move, I'd always rather try and go for good timing. Rock Tomb is going to connect, and that's some solid damage onto that Weezing. Weezing returning fire with a debuff Sludge, but now I can send out Dusknoir. Dusknoir farming up energy. I'm going to be shielding even though they are debuffed. I want Dusknoir to be as healthy as possible. Now my opponent is going to switch into a Lapras, and that is not a good response to a Dusknoir. I'm baiting here. It's risky, but I'm calling a shield. I get the shield, and now let's start spamming out Dynamic Punch. I'm keeping Dusknoir as healthy as I possibly can. So I'm shielding up the Sparkling Aria, and now I get to farm up to the back-to-back Dynamic Punches, and let's inflict some pain. Dynamic Punch number 1 is gonna connect, immediately followed by Dynamic Punch number 2. Shadow Punch would not KO from this health range. Dynamic absolutely will. So I still have a pretty healthy Shadow Dusknoir. Opponent is going to bring in the Weezing. I'm going to throw a 2-weighted turn and catch a Brutal Swing onto the Weezing. This is great for me. Dusknoir should be in a pretty okay position to sweep. Opponent going to farm up some energy, but it's Gastrodon in the back. No, I really dislike this Pokemon in the Ultra League. Gastrodon just slapping through my hopes and dreams, and unfortunately 2 Play Roughs don't even knock this thing out because it's so bulky. I do have some pretty solid responses to Gastrodon on this team, but unfortunately it ended up aligned out of the one thing that I really could not afford to have see it. I sent in the Dusknoir, but they are one off a move on the Weezing, so no matter what I do at this point, this game is a loss. I go for the Grass Knot, they catch it, but whether they stayed in and just got KO'd or swapped, either way was winning because they could make a move on either Mon. So unfortunately, once the Gastrodon was revealed, I did not have a win con. Credilli versus Credilli. Okay, we've got the mirror match. Now, Credilli, ideally you want the Hundo. I just don't have the Hundo, so I run the best that I have, but it's always going to be a coin flip here unless they're running a weird best buddy spread. Here, I do win the 50-50 coin flip, which means I get to apply my attack debuff first. That is very, very clutch. And now, I'm more than happy to stay in. I'm hoping they play for CMP again. I actually win it twice in a row, so a bit of good luck does go my way. The second one didn't matter nearly as much, because since they're now energy dry, I'm pivoting out of here. It's Dusknoir time. Dusknoir, especially once your opponent throws their energy, can get so scary. They're going to send out, is that a Charm Clefable? Now, Clefable usually runs Fairy Wind, but Charm Clefable, look at how badly Clefable gets shredded here by Dusknoir. This is just unfair. Look at the pacing. Shadow Punch after Shadow Punch. They're desperately trying to charm down the Dusknoir. Surely I won't make a 4th move, right? There's no way. Yes way. Shadow Dusknoir is absurd. Hex is absolutely the way to go. To me, there is no reason to run Astonish. The Hex pacing is crazy on the Shadow. Here, I'm going to respect it because I assume Clefable should be running Meteor Mash. This one is not. They send out a Shadow Drifblim, and I immediately make a play that loses me the game. Had I switched into Credilli instantly, I could have outpaced, and I would have been fine. But instead, I throw some fast moves on that Weezing first. I get outpaced, and now I just don't think that I can win this game. I'm going to send in the Weezing. They throw instantly here, and I think that's just thrown it for me, which is very unfortunate. They go for the Shadow Ball. I'm going to try and overfarm as much as I possibly can, but they try and catch onto Clefable. Wait, we might be back in this game. This is going to be close. All I remember is their Credilli is one off a move. So I farm to 100, fire off the Play Rough KOs. In comes Credilli. I can't get to another Play Rough, so this is going to have to KO. Sludge into Credilli, knocks them out, and even despite a misplay, we're able to get the win. Credilli versus Credilli. This is a very popular site, and this battler is also an unbelievably good battler. Here, I do actually lose the 50-50 coin flip, so my opponent will get to apply the debuff first, but I'm going to try and play in a similar way, where if they end up CMP tying on the second one, I'm again just going to trade Rock Tombs and then look to pivot out, because Dusknoir up energy is incredibly scary, because even a Dark type or a normal can't be brought into it, because you get to Dynamic Punch so quickly. Rock Tomb, they actually win both coin flips, so I won the first coin flips last game, and now my opponent's winning it this game. But here is the switch in to the Dusknoir. Out comes a Talonflame, and we can immediately greet that Talonflame with a Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch is going to land. It looks like with the Hexes that I can potentially pick up the KO with a Shadow Punch. So now they're going to go for the fly, and I'm going to throw 3 and the move, making sure that I'm trying to maximize good timing. Hoping this Shadow Punch will be enough. My opponent ends up shielding. I could have thrown there to CMP tie, but I'm pretty sure that's not a CMP tie that I win, so I will end up shielding. And now I'm going to build up to the back-to-back. This guarantees that my opponent will let this go. I undercharge, hoping to leave them at 1 HP for extra farm, but I'm not able to do so. In the back is Weezing, so my opponent running a very similar team composition to me. I'm going to farm up, switch into the Weezing, and I get a catch. So I get a catch of a Brutal Swing. That is very good, and I banked a move for later. In comes Credilli. Credilli going to be firing off some energy here. Rock Tomb is going to inflict solid damage. Rock Tomb lowering my attack. I'm farming up a lot, and I'm going for the Sludge. I'm hoping that this will be enough to knock out here. It's going to be very close. Sludge connects. Credilli barely hangs on, but I get the farm down, and that should put me in a winning position because I have a Shadow Punch banked. So I can just take this game. I switch. I accidentally overtap. I tried to click the move, but I missed it. I clicked next to it, and missing that charge move actually loses me this game. Oh my goodness, that hurt to watch back. This was a game where once I caught the Brutal Swing, I think I was in a winning position. And if I successfully comboed, I would have been fine. But unfortunately, I lost that move, and my Credilli, it's too low. So my opponent, with great energy management on the Weezing now, is going to be able to take this game as Sludge KOs my Credilli. We move to the final match, leading Credilli into an extra small Shadow Donphan. That is adorable. Opponent save switches into Shadow Drapion, and again, I don't have a good switch into this. Judging by the fact that they're leading a Mud Slapper though, I'm expecting that my Weezing could have a really good play in the back since they're so strong against it in the lead. So I'm actually going to save the Weezing this time and make a bit of a weird play, sending in the Dusknoir. I can survive a debuffed crunch here, but realistically, I would love to keep myself as healthy as I possibly can. So I am going to commit the shield and then full send Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch into the Drapion does get shielded, so my opponent tried to make a play for swap as well. But as you see, I'm already at another Dynamic Punch. The pacing on this Pokemon is crazy. There's the switch out. Unfortunately, I did get debuffed by a crunch, so I'm taking a lot of damage from the Mud Slaps. Shadow Punch is going to connect. There's the switch to Credilli, and this should be the Trailblaze from my opponent. Realistically, throwing Grass Knot here is a huge error because if I throw Grass Knot, I knock them out, but then I concede huge farm to the Drapion. So I'm actually going to Rock Tomb and force a simultaneous KO because this way, their Drapion doesn't get an insurmountable energy advantage. And now I send in Weezing, they bring in the Drapion, and this is fine. I can tank whatever they throw and commit to the Fairy Wind farm down. They're going to go for the Aqua Tail. In the back is a Chestnut. Now, when I saw that typing, I was expecting Virizion, but Chestnut, this works as well. Sludge, huge damage. I can fire off Sludge number 2, looking to apply a ton of pressure to my opponent, and it doesn't matter what they throw. I can tank whatever it is, because Weezing just has such a commanding matchup. Opponent is going to go for the Frenzy Plant. There's the Snipe. No overtaps this time. We are clicking our Shadow Punch when we have it, KOing the Chestnut. All that's left is going to be the Drapion, and just look at the pacing. My goodness, this pacing is wild. Shadow Punch, knocking out the Drapion, and we're able to take the win. And here, the final set that I did on stream was a 5-0 that did take me to the aforementioned 2567 elo. All in all, I don't think this is a perfect team by any means, but Shadow Dusknoir is just, my goodness, it put in a tremendous amount of work. I think the key is trying to find moments when the opponent had thrown all of their energy and then aggressively pivoting it in. Because in a meta in the Ultra League where you don't have something like a Wigglytuff to realistically shut it down, that means that its coverage is perfect. It's going to be able to hit anything that gets brought into it. Obviously, the worst case scenario would be something like a Mandibuzz, but outside of that, Dusknoir felt very, very strong. And its energy, even against its bad matchups like Drapion or something like a Pangoro, still hit incredibly hard, as Dynamic Punch is a ridiculous move. It's a fighting type clone of the move Psystrike this season. And y'all know from Master League Mewtwo, Psystrike inflicts a serious amount of damage. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying watching the Ultra League content, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.